What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house. It's going to be torn down soon.
I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close.
What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
I'm joined today with George. How are you doing today, George?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I always read off of the names, and I remember your last name's a little bit of a mouthful, kind of like mine. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Ozoude.
Ozoude.
So
Okay.
it's more intimidating than it looks more intimidating than it is. But
Yeah. I'd agree with that. But I want to let you know, first of all, George, that I'm really excited to have you today because I have my very favorite audience member here today. And why is my favorite audience member here today? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators, buyers, sellers, investors, all that kind of stuff. And why do I do that? Well, you obviously need to know if there's any overlap between your business and other people who are in your circle in the same niche and all that kind of stuff. But it sure helps that it's the law that you can't share your private deals unless you have a prior substantive relationship that's documented and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we're here. But before we get too excited about that, George, you want to introduce yourself a little bit more before we get into the different details here?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm a orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine physician by trade. That's what I went to school for a decade for. And I've recently started my own private practice. I have a direct pay free market orthopedic practice. And I started that a year ago, coming up on the 1 year anniversary. And I've been a investor in real estate and real assets for the past 6 years, starting with a surgery center investment and then moved on to multifamily. And now I'm also in agriculture, oil and gas, energy sectors as well. So it's been a really good ride over the last 6 years. And I've just gotten to the point where I want to kind of spread these ideas and this information to other physicians who are looking for financial freedom, who are looking for restoration of their autonomy. They want their career back. It's definitely helped me in my journey, and I want to just help other physicians get to that point as well. So I started a syndication private equity company. It's called Time Health Capital. And we've done our first co-sponsored deal this year, and currently, just looking for more opportunities, and very happy about the journey and the people I've met so far. So it's been really cool.
Excellent. So that's great because the next part, that the first segment that I really do here, I go through the 5 different distinct motivations I found that really tell me, what's going on with a particular investor. But before we do that, I have to say, but wait, check your 8. And George, I don't know if you look at 8, like at your camera at like the 8 o'clock, it's 5. Yep. It's 5 for the audience. Can you see if they've got that ugly red subscribe button or if they've got the gray one? Because we really should have the gray one. That's just a joke I always like to do. But anyway, nice. These 5 distinct motivations. The first reason why some people get into this business is because, or at least why they're making an acquisition, I should say, is because they are preserving their purchasing power. And if you already have a portfolio of assets and you make ends meet by the cash flow that comes from the property that you own, then the only reason why you're going to go through the hassle of making a new acquisition is either you're staving off inflation because it's eating away at your purchasing power, or there's been an asset crash, so that means you get a big discount. Those aren't what I'm up to at all. What I'm up to, which I'm sure has something to do with George's commercial real estate stuff, which is trading time directly for wealth instead of paying more in income tax than anybody else. Okay. When you work for a high salary, me personally, I come from a tech background. Specifically, it was in e-commerce CRMs. So they actually take orders while you're doing your mass marketing and all those types of funnels. But it hit me is like, well, how can I pivot so that I'm being rewarded in the form of deployed capital rather than in the form of salary or wage? And then that way I get to keep more of it. So that's what I'm up to personally. But some people, they just want to take more control over their schedule. And that might mean that they want to fast track their retirement. But some people, it just means they want to work fewer months per year, fewer weeks per month, or something like that. But others, they're just plain ambitious. They want that generational wealth. They want to buy their entire hometown. Who knows what it is, but if you're looking for that generational wealth, then you're going to keep on hustling into your 90s, which makes you a great addition to these different GP teams. But the last reason I've found that's distinct, some people, they've picked a sector of society, or maybe it's animals, the environment, or who knows what it is, but they've realized that you need a substantial financial backing if you're going to make a really big impact on that sector of society. And that's why they're doing this. So of those five different reasons, George, what combination of those would you feel describes you best?
I would say all of them, to be honest.
Mhm.
Obviously there are certain ones that kind of stick out more than others, but I think all those points are very important. Thinking about my journey, I definitely want that time freedom, that autonomy in your own personal sovereignty of what you can do with your time. And I think that that is the foundation of a really fulfilling life, is how free are you in your time capital. And that's why my company is named Time Health Capital. I think the point about helping others and leaving an impact, is huge. That's actually a kind of a recent one for me, because for a long time I thought about the impact I would make as a physician. But now I really look at the impact that I can make as a person who tries to free physicians to be better physicians, right? Free others to be, and that to me is huge. That's the big why behind what I'm doing. And it pushes you, it drives you, it motivates you to learn more, to interact more, to make progress, to make some failures and learn from it, right?
Mhm.
So, all these things are important, but yeah, those two stick out for me a lot.
All right, I love it. I love it. And one of the things that made me think of was how, even in a group like physicians, which I've had enough friends who are physicians, and their intelligence is what comes out right off the bat. But even if you are a very sophisticated professional in what you're doing, that doesn't mean that your financial literacy is where it needs to be. And so even though you guys get kind of a pass in that regards, I still am going to go through the tolerance for risk assessment that I do with newbies, where, who knows what their background is. And it's basically to make sure that they didn't just go, oh, I hear there's a bunch of money in commercial real estate and that's why I should do it. I need to make sure that people understand that there are risks involved, and it's much more complex than that. So I asked this question. So George, please fill in this blank. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What do you think is too risky?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I'm probably going to come with a not so usual answer. I'm going to come with the US dollar specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I think fiat currencies are something that we are just conditioned to just really believe is a strong asset class. And that's why I think it's the most risky. It's because some of the inherent qualities of it make it a very challenging asset class to kind of coexist with these concepts of personal sovereignty and time freedom. You know, it's a lot of steps in between, but really that USD, that US dollar is probably the most risky
Mm-hmm.
compared to other fiat currencies. We probably want to be in USD, but I think it lulls us to a sense of comfort, right? When we really want to be in real assets, we don't want to be in just USD, and I think USD gives us a pass to kind of say, no, oh, I got a bunch of numbers behind, my bank account statement. It's filling up with USD, and I feel good. Well, that's a red herring. It's actually, a problem brewing underneath what really underlies those fundamentals, like you mentioned, inflation,
Mm-hmm.
huge impact on USD, a hidden tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is the most risky one just because of its kind of subvert nature.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was lucky enough to live on the other side of the world, and so I've lived in several different currencies. And the U.S. dollar has always been, the one that I really count wealth on. But that's just because I'm not in the U.S. I definitely agree with what you're saying. And when you start to study things and find out, it's like, okay, so if a fiat currency isn't that great, then what's better? And then you find out about like precious metals like gold that used to be the standard for all these different nations' wealth. But then you find out it's like, well, yeah, but if you own gold, you don't make money for owning gold unless you can like lend it out at some sort of interest or something like that. So it's not that great.
Right.
And then as a store of value, though, then you learn about real estate, and it's like, oh wow, like I like the independence of government that real estate, especially commercial real estate, provides, is because even if there's tension, all kinds of troubles going on, they're going to be coming to landlords to say, hey, we still need you to keep going as usual. So like they have to play ball a little bit, and I think that's a lot about it. But that's the really weird part of real estate for today. What we're going to do next, which is far more practical, especially if you're just starting up on this, is the Dan Does Deals Commercial Competency Cube. It's got the 6 different roles that I found are distinct in a commercial deal. And the reason why I go through this in every single episode of Chance Encounters is because I want to make sure that you can effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate. I want to make sure that you get some idea of how a deal works, but most importantly, I want to make sure that you understand how my guest fits into these deals. So I'll go through all of them super duper fast. First one, the repositioner. They're looking at a bunch of different properties. They're doing a bunch of paperwork. What are they doing with this paperwork? Well, there's a fancy word for it. They call it underwriting. That means they're doing the arithmetic. They're making some guesses. They're making some plans to figure out how are we going to get some upside, but they're also figuring out, wait a second, is this building even making the amount of money that the seller or broker is claiming it is? So when the repositioner is trying to figure out if there's upside, they have 3 main tools in their tool belt that they're going to use to pull it off. The first one is talking to financiers. That could be investor relations. A financier is a person who only deals with paper and money, and anybody who's a serious syndicator, repositioner, sponsor, or something like that, you're going to have some financier roles. And I think George has more of them than average. But if the reason why you're chasing financiers is to get more advantageous lending, because if you get a cheaper loan, then you automatically have upside on your business. But often the first place the repositioner is going to look is the operations to see, hey, are there any ways we can stop these Benjamins from going down those toilets? But of course, there's more to operations than just that. And once you get into bigger buildings, then you might get a third-party operations team on there. But there's still an asset management part of it, which can do with automations and making new offers and making sure you got the marketing going on. And that's where my forte comes in. But often operations aren't going to be enough. Real estate's very competitive, so the repositioner has to get a contractor team and doing a value add. Sometimes there is no value add to be done. Sometimes the repositioner depends on the value add to make money on the entire deal. But when you're working with these contractors, you can spend a lot of money super duper quickly. So you got to be careful. And if you're like me and you're from the internet, you're going to need a local. You're going to need somebody nearby who can be there in an hour or so, because that's not going to be me. I'd still be stuck at the airport. But when the repositioner has the deal in mind, has the team figured out, and turns around to the financier and says, hey, I got this 350 unit apartment complex, it's worth tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have, say, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, the financier is going to have one other question on their mind, which is, who's your KP sponsor? See, even if you have a bunch of pals, George, he's a physician, maybe he has a bunch of physician pals, they want to take over a building. One thing they're going to run into is that you're not going to be eligible for a commercial loan unless you have somebody in the fold who already owns a similar asset. Okay, so, 350 units, somebody needs a 350 unit building if they're going to be eligible. But on top of that, you need, between the partnership team, you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan, and you need a certain amount of liquidity. You add all that together, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So, George, on those different roles there, I'm sure there's some repositioner roles that you're doing. I'm sure there's some financier roles, but what would you describe as your core competencies that you're bringing to deals?
Great question. I think one thing you can kind of think about is almost everyone on that GP team kind of has a financier role because everyone's a marketer for that deal, whether they're operations, whether they're the KP. They want to see that deal, get funded, provide a return for the investors. So to a large degree, everyone is kind of a financier. And so that's one automatic that every GP member is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would add to that specifically, personally for myself, being a physician, with good income, I've been offered, opportunities to be KPs, add my net worth and my liquidity to the balance sheet of GP teams. I haven't done it yet, but that's something that I foresee in the future because that's a advantage of having someone who has a higher net worth on the team. And operations as well. Sometimes you're just called upon to kind of do some asset managing, as well as local. I do that as well. I can be that boots on the ground to go check out a property and, make sure what's being, in the scope of work is actually being carried out in the actual property. So it really depends. And you can have different strengths and play to your strengths. But you can also have multiple roles. You can serve multiple roles on a GP team. I think the biggest thing is to find where your strength is so you can lean into that. And now you're a real asset to a GP team. You find other people who have other strengths, and now you really got a strong team.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. So let's get into the buy box then. And when commercial syndicators or investors, players are talking about your ideal property, they're really talking about three things. The first one's going to be geography. So which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhood. It definitely matters. The second thing is going to be the size of the deal. Now we're talking about multifamily, so it's going to be unit count is the way that you define the size. And the reason why it's important is because you're going to have different groups of people dealing with 15 unit deals compared to the ones that are 500 unit deals. Okay, so it's very important with those sizes. Now the third one, the word is class, and unfortunately they often use that word for two different meanings, which is something I'm not a huge fan of, but here's what they are. The first one has to do with the condition of the building. So first of all, is it old or is it fairly recent? Is it beat up or is it up to date? Is it like no frills or is it full of amenities and all kinds of luxuries and all that kind of stuff? So that's the first meaning of class. The second meaning of class is sometimes called area, and what it has to do with is what the school districts and the crime rate is like where the property is located. But both of those two versions of class, they use the same system as in grade school. So it's like A plus, A minus, B plus, and so on. So George, as far as you and your most frequent team, what are you guys looking for? What's easier to say yes to and more difficult to say no to?
You know what? Honestly, when I first started investing, I kind of had a target. But as I transitioned into more of give me 1 second, sorry.
Sure.
Give me 1 second.
I'll pause it.
Yeah, so the way I think about that is when I first started investing, I felt like I had to develop a specific target, and I do think that's beneficial. But as I transition into a more of a thought leader who's going to try to get more physicians involved, I realized that I need to actually listen to the specific problems that I'm solving for the investor in front of me. And even though we're physicians and we kind of have the same headwinds, a lot of us may have different investing goals. And when those investing goals are considered, it actually starts making sense to apply them to different types of asset classes. And what you'll notice with these different grades is that they come with different pros and cons. So something that's maybe lower grade, C, B minus, it may be a little bit more risky. Therefore, it may have a little bit more of aggressive return profile. If I have an investor doc in front of me who says, look, I got a steady income, I just want to aggressively grow my wealth, and I have a little bit more a higher risk tolerance, now that makes more sense for that investor. So now I'm looking to partner with operators who specialize in those asset classes, where if I have someone who, is more towards the end of their career, they don't want to be as aggressive. They want something with a little bit more conservative cash flow, a little bit more predictable. They're going to want a development deal or a plus property.
Mhm.
So then now I'm looking for the best in class operators who do development deals. I want to work with them and get these investors into those properties. So I would say as of now, my target is what makes sense for the investors in front of me.
Mhm.
Personally, I have a higher, risk threshold. So I'm, in a part of my phase, my season, right, where, aggressive growth is something that I'd look for. So I'm willing to take more calculated risk. That's a key, not just any risk. We don't want to be reckless. We want to take calculated risks and have more aggressive cash flow and more aggressive wealth appreciation, right? So it really depends on what season you're in and what you're looking for.
That's awesome. It's a little bit disappointing because I had a $400,000 wall of Air Jordans that I was going to ask you about, but no, I'm just
Nice,
kidding.
nice. Aggressive. That's aggressive.
Yeah, no, I'm totally full of it. I don't own Air Jordans at all, but I think it's a fun joke. But normally the next one that I do, you just did a great job of describing who you're looking for. Me personally, I'm always looking for more sponsor KPs just because of my marketing background, mass media, CRM, and all that kind of stuff. We're pretty clear that you're looking for other health professionals and other high earners and whatnot. But if people want to reach out to catch you, I guess I'll go through mine stuff first because my
Sure.
name right there, it's pretty unique, it's pretty unusual, so I'm easy to find on LinkedIn where it can be found most often. This QR code, if you scan it with your phone, that'll bring you to the FAQ page of 506 BME, which is the service where I will be your chief compliance officer for as little as $497 a year, depending on how complex your situation is. But George, for you, if people want to reach out to you, what are the best ways? Is it through a social
Yes.
media platform or something else?
Yes. Many ways to reach me. I would say for emailing me, you can email me at george@timehealthcapital.com. And then my social media, I'm on everything. So you can find me if you just type in my name, George.Ozoude or George Ozoude. You'll find me on all the social media platforms. I'm most active with my real estate information and content on LinkedIn, and happy to connect with folks on those platforms.
All right, beautiful. And then the only thing left is actually not for you, George, is for you in the audience, which is I know that he's the doctor and all, but if you have been watching this episode and been experiencing this searing pains in your eyeballs, like migraine-like symptoms, it's probably because there's a hideous red button under my left hand. It says subscribe on it. It's really ugly. And if you click on it, it goes away. It turns into the gray button of tranquility. It's wonderful. And you'll notice it's like a miracle. It's all fixed. And full disclosure, the real reason why I want you to click on it is because then maybe YouTube will eventually start paying for these videos instead of me. And that'd be really, really awesome. But all it does is it means that my videos might show you on your list of suggestions, but you can go ahead and ignore those. I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like George, this has been awesome getting to know you better. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excellent stuff. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506BME?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506BME, everybody.